The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. A Gabriola Pub is facing a court-ordered sale in the midst of foreclosure proceedings. The Skol Pub near the Gabriola Island Ferry Terminal is listed for sale at $319,000. According to a notice of application filed with the BC Supreme Court Monday and obtained by CHLY, the mortgage holder, Accountable Mortgage Investment Corp, will seek an order approving the sale on Monday, September 23rd. The notice of application states that a prospective buyer has come forward and that the realtor for the property has stated that at least 4 other realtors have indicated that they believe their clients will be submitting competitive offers to court. Under BC's sealed bid process for foreclosures, the deadline for bids is 4 p.m., 2 business days before the hearing for sale approval. That means anyone interested in submitting a bid for the Skol has until Thursday, September 19th. The current owners have been involved in other legal matters before the BC Supreme Court, including a civil case in which plaintiffs accused the Skol's owners of promising to help them immigrate to Canada under a program for entrepreneur immigrants investing in BC businesses, only to instead allegedly convert investment funds to the owner's own use while doing nothing to advance the immigration process. At one point in a February decision in that case, BC Supreme Court Justice Nathan Smith wrote that he found the 2014 purchase of the Skol Pub was induced by a fraudulent misrepresentation. You can find a link to the full decision in that case in the description of this episode on our website, chly.ca/midcoastmorning. With the future of the pub in question, today on the program, we'll be sharing some memories of the Skol, including some from the co-creator of both its previous iterations, the Beanery and the White Hart. First, Theo Spencer is among a group of staff who have been keeping things running at the Skol. What are you doing throughout all of this? I understand that you're heavily involved in keeping things going. You've put out some posts on Facebook, maybe even looking for help from the community to spruce the place up. Could you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, we take a lot of pride in the business. It's a community business. It's something that everybody really enjoys, and it's very inclusive, and it needs a facelift. So just because we have pride in what we do, we'd like to go out with a bang, if it is going to be purchased or if it is going to be taken over in some way or another. We all just want it to look as nice as it can before that happens and enjoy it.
So who is running the place right now?
There is no manager. It's a cooperative. We have a really tight team of friends, and we all contribute in our own ways. We respect one another's abilities and different skill sets. That's how it works.
And I understand that there are a number of sort of weekly events. I was able to go to the Skol on Monday night and take in what I think it's fair to say was a pretty large crowd for an open mic night. What does the place mean to the community on Gabriola Island?
I mean, it's a very important establishment on our island. It's housed so many different events, so many really important events, celebrations of life, parties for bridesmaids, or anything like that, birthdays, just so many things, and a lot of parties, just everything that brings the community together. I mean, there are so many memories involved in. Just that whole building houses a lot of community memories. So,
do you have a sense of what any of the timelines are on this?
No, we have no idea. And that's why we want to invest in it looking as good as possible, because we kind of, I think our agenda is actually that we're hoping that somebody will consider the establishment's history and want to continue it with understanding that it's important to all of us.
How is this uncertainty, maybe if it's fair to say that, impacting you and the other staff?
We don't really focus on that. We're pretty optimistic. We're a really good crew, and we're just optimistic, and we're just putting energy where we want it to go, which is in maintaining, improving, and hopefully kind of selling the idea of it being a community hub.
Well, what kind of reaction have you gotten from the community since maybe some of these real estate postings came out with news of this foreclosure?
I mean, we all understand that it's fairly complex. We also understand that there's a chance that somebody will buy it and it'll maintain its beautiful position as a community event place and a bar that people can come and gather at and enjoy their fellow islanders.
And can you tell me a bit about maybe the history of the Skol Pub? I know it's gone through a few different iterations over the decades. It's had a few different names. What do you think people need to know about it?
I think that the theme is always the same. The theme is always it's a gathering place for people who care about one another. It's a place where people can network, meet new people, and it's a very inclusive, friendly environment. And we all work hard to maintain that and keep up to date with what's happening, so that we can provide the best possible service for our community.
So reading through some of the court documents related to this, one gets the sense that the Skol Pub, this kind of Gabriola Island community hub, was caught up in what seems to have become a fraudulent scheme to get some money from people looking to immigrate to Canada. I don't know, what do you make of that?
I think that in business, people can unfortunately fall prey to their lesser selves. I don't know if it's that unusual, and I feel like, yeah, that may be the case, but I don't think that necessarily has to carry forward into the future. I feel like it doesn't need to affect what the future of the school will be.
So all of that has kind of been separate from the day-to-day running of the pub. Like, has it impacted things?
No. I think the community runs the school. I don't think the owners, I think they understand that we're a pretty tight community and that we maintain regardless. Is
there anything else you'd like to let people know about the school, given all this news about it? Just that we are committed to keeping it. If somebody does want to invest in it, I think that they'd be happy to understand that all of us are absolutely committed to its preservation and beautification, and just keeping our community space. It really is. It's the portal to Gabriola. You're right off the ferry. It's this gorgeous little quaint, a little bit crusty, but that gives it some salty flavor. You know, I mean, it's got some flavor to it. Theo Spencer is one of the staff members at the Skol Pub. Monday is open mic night at the school. I paid a visit this week. While I was there, I heard some Neil Young, some Stan Rogers,
Fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Paris privateers.
And I spoke with musician Eric Johnson. Okay, so you've been coming here since 1991, on and off.
Yeah.
What has kept you here for 33 years?
Well, it was one of the few places you could play on the island, for one thing, and it's always been a comfortable, nice place to play, you know. And whoever was running the jam or the open mic or whatever, at this particular place has been really, really good to musicians, and that's getting rarer and rarer all the time.
In more than 30 years worth of coming here, do you have any, favorite memories, things that stand out to you about the place?
My favorite memory of this place, to tell you the truth, is I was running the jam that time. Everybody's running the jam here. But it was Saturday afternoon, and Ron McCaffrey was running this place, and he told me specifically not to play Sweet Home Alabama. It's a rule. Do not play Sweet Home Alabama. And I was jerking around, being a jerk, and I cut into, and there was a bunch of bikers that showed up from Nanaimo. And I just cut into the first part of Sweet Home Alabama, being a jerk. And the bikers all jumped on top of the tables and started hollering. And Ron McCaffrey pointed at me and said, "I told you not to play that song." That's
Why? What's the rule? Why not?
Yeah, well, it's one of those songs that incites people. I don't know what it is about Sweet Home Alabama, but there's basically a rule in bars: you do not play that when there's a rough crowd in there.
And the bikers were excited to hear it. It was good kind of.
Oh, they were real excited. They're standing on the table screaming. That's yeah. And there were nice tables back in the day. So. But yeah, no, it's been great stuff in here. I mean, we've had great nights here, and it's just a really nice place. I really think it's a nice place, and I can't say nice enough things about Theo Spencer and Helen Gresham, and I forgot the other ladies' names, but all the ladies that work in here they work together in a kind of a real tight unit, and they've kept this place afloat, and they really have, and they're excellent hosts. They really are.
And there was the news this week, I guess, that this place is being foreclosed. No one kind of really knows what's going to happen, what the future holds. Like, what would it mean to lose this if this was no longer a pub for the community?
I think it would be a big deal, because it is the number, and apologies to the surf, but it is the number one place for musicians to play on this island. And it's close to the ferry, so it's accessible for touring musicians and musicians from Nanaimo and Victoria and all over the place. And it's just a nice setup, and it's got a history and the acoustics. I think the acoustics are good. And
This week I also spoke with Gabriola Island resident Pam McCarthy. Do you have any favorite memories of the Skol or under its former name?
Actually, my favorite night ever and forever is the very kind of first event that I ever went to at the Skol, which was at the time the White Hart. It was like May 2008, and it was the Rockstar night. And so there was basically a band. So the same band would play, but then they'd have like a new lead singer. And so it was like somebody from the community would be like, yeah, I want to do it. And so they'd rehearse with the band. And then on Rockstar night, like each person got up and like did their song. And there was like, judges and winners and all this stuff. And it was all the community. And it was just so much fun. Everybody got to be a rock star that wanted to be. I'll never forget that night.
If someone were to buy the place as part of this foreclosure sale, I don't know, what kind of message would you want to give them, or what would you hope they do with it?
Oh, I definitely would hope they would keep it as, a community space, like some sort of pub or restaurant or something where everybody can, still congregate to, and, and I don't know, just keep it as is. And maybe, there's always kind of different changes you can make, but still like keep it as like a public place where, is open late until the evening and there for people who are, in line at the ferry, maybe pop in and get something easy and quick. Cause now we got ferries every 35 minutes, whereas before it was like hour and 15. So you could maybe go into the pub and, have a burger while you're waiting, but now you don't really do that. So maybe they could offer some, fast foodie items for people in the ferry. I don't know, but just keep it open, keep it public, and keep it a happening place, and keep the staff. They know what to do.
When we come back, we'll hear from the founder of what became the Skol Pub, which 50 years ago was a roadside snack bar.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Support Midcoast Morning and CHLY's nonprofit newsroom today by becoming a sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. Local news can't survive without your support. Another way to help us out is to share this show with your friends and tell them why they should support us. Finally, if you're listening to the podcast edition of Midcoast Morning, go and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast feed you use. It helps people find us.
On today's show, we're talking about the Skol Pub on Gabriola Island. It's up for a court-ordered foreclosure sale next month. The owners who purchased the property in 2014 have been involved in a number of lawsuits, including one in which a BC Supreme Court justice wrote that he found the 2014 purchase was induced by a fraudulent misrepresentation related to promises made to investors looking to immigrate to Canada. Decades before that, together with her husband, Annette Sweeney founded the cafe, the Beanery, that would become the pub, the White Hart, that would become the Skol.
My husband and I built the Beanery. We were the original owners of it. We've lived on Gabriola. I've lived on Gabriola for 50 years.
When did the Beanery get its start?
1975.
And what was it like back then?
The Beanery started out as about a 4x8, or no, I guess 6x8 little snack bar at the side of the road at the ferry. And we had bought it from the lady that lived rented the place that is now the Skol Pub. It was a resident at the time. And she was running this little snack bar. And through a series of things, we ended up buying it from her, the little snack bar, which we ran for about a year right at the ferry there. And then people started to sort of say, gee, in the wintertime, like they'd all be lined up in front of the Beanery. I mean, it was a place that people just, well, it wasn't the Beanery then, it was just the snack bar. But, they'd gather around and gossip or whatever, waiting for the ferry to come in. And people finally said, gee, it's too bad there isn't a place we could sit down. So anyway, in the long and the short of it, we eventually were given the right to turn the house into a restaurant, which we did. The Beanery restaurant, it was pretty small, but it was it became a real hub on the island, for locals. And of course, people were waiting for the ferry, but lots of people used to come down every day just to have coffee, just to talk, and have fun. So we had that for 10 years. We ran that for 10 years. And then we only had a lease on that property because at that time, I believe, the building sat on about 120-acre parcel of land. And, he wasn't interested in selling it to anybody. So we just had a lease that we were operating under. And we decided as we were getting towards the end of the lease that it was time to move on because, there's no value in having a lease that's running out. And so we just, then we decided that maybe instead of like shutting it down and moving on to other things, we decided to convert it to a pub. And it was the White Hart Pub, which we ran for 6 years.
So it was you behind both the start of the Beanery and the White Hart.
Yeah. We converted it to a pub in 1984, I believe, and ran it till 1990.
What was it like back in those days, in the early days of the pub?
Well, it was certainly a different time in terms of, like, when we went into the business, it was every day you were busy with people that were coming. Like BC Hydro used to come in and have a pint of beer on their way out of the place, and people drank a lot, and it was a much more, it was a smaller island, less to do too, but it was a regular routine. People would start out at the Silver Bay, and then they'd end up at the Surf, and then they'd end up at the White Hart, like it was like a circuit, right? And then things changed quite dramatically by the late 80s, Mothers Against drunk driving and all that stuff. So it was becoming less viable, I would have thought. Not viable, but, people would just drag less, let's put it that way. And that was the year I had my second daughter, so that was a good time for us to sell it, and we did.
Do you have any favorite memories of your time? I guess you must have several, having, run two versions of it over the course of 15, 16-ish years. Well,
the Beanery was a real island hub at that time. I mean, there were a lot of new babies born in the early 80s, so all the moms would be there every morning, talking about, raising kids and whatnot. And we had a great big table that's still there that my husband built, that the people referred to it as the bullshit table, because all the old timers would come down, sit around that big table, tell all the old stories, from the earlier days, and every day. It was just a routine. People made it a part of their routine to go down and and have a coffee or whatever. And we eventually got into more of a eating. A dining room, not really a dining room, but a much more extended menu. As time went on, we did a big addition, and so it did change from that little quaint thing. But it was always a good popular pub, and it was right at the ferry. So often we'd be the first people to see that the people would come in, asking where things would go, where things are, what's happening. So they would come into the beanery, or I guess the beanery originally, and find out what was going on. So we could always tell if there was like some sketchy person coming on the island, and we'd pass that on to the TNT Texco, which isn't there anymore, and everybody would like have a heads up, and it was funny. It was funny times. It was really a lot of fun, actually.
Do you ever stop into the Skol Pub these days?
Not really. Not much, no. To be quite honest with you, my husband passed away 6 years ago, and he used to go every day for a beer in the afternoon with his buddies, and they'd sit around and talk. And, just like the old days, really, like they'd just sit around and talk for an hour or so. And I used to go down there on a Friday with him. But after he died, I never really went down there much. But to me, it was too bad that it was run down so much. There was not a lot of money ever put back into that place, to keep it up. But I know they've got a hell of a good staff there that just keeps on plugging away in spite of everything. And I know there's a lot of interest in the island with a lot of people, musicians especially, to have a nice venue there at the ferry. And so I read the article last night about whatever's going on with the buyers, but
you've heard there's a foreclosure sale.
Yes, we know everything on Gabriola. when something happens, we all know.
Reading that as maybe the person who turned this into a pub. Do you have any hopes for whatever like a prospective buyer might do with it in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope if somebody buys it, they live on the island. I hope they're locals, because that's the trouble with the Skol, I think, the last few years, is that the people haven't been local in any way. They come over, they go, staff, even for a while there, the staff was coming from Nanaimo. And I think if you're invested in the community, you do a better job. I don't think they were invested in the community at all. Not the staff again. I think they're all island folk, and they're all, wanting the best, and they all want to make a living and all that stuff. But I think the ownership has definitely been, not there. We were there all the time when we owned it. That pretty much was our life. We did a lot of stuff there and had lots of, things happening all the time. You had to keep people interested in going to the pub, so we had games nights and all sorts of stuff like that. And that was so popular. That was such a good thing to do. Actually, I kept a record of all of that stuff, all the things we used to do. I used to put out a little newsletter at the ferry, and it's interesting now to go back, because I kept all the copies of all the things that happened historically on the island back in those days, right? Lots of changes that happened, and I've got that all in the form of these little newsletters that I used to put out.
Do you ever go back and, read through them? Are there any things you were always thinking about that were maybe in them that you'd want to share?
Well, not. We did so many different things. Like we would, the way it worked on the island, everybody was busy as heck in the summertime. Everybody had more business than they knew what to do with. And then, of course, once the summer was over and the tourists left and everything, you had to fight for your customers, right? So you always had to be having different events almost to make people want to go. If there was a dance down at Silver Bay, everybody was at the dance, and your pub was dead. So I mean, it was really important to always have things to attract people to your place, right? We had a lot of live music. We did live music and lots of dancing stuff. That's in the pub days. Now this is after the restaurant.
And there
anyway, I hope that somebody local buys it. Somebody who wants to keep the music going, wants to, clean it up, paint it up, make it look more inviting. That would be a wonderful thing. I'd be very happy about that.
Annette Sweeney founded the Beanery, which would later become the White Hart, which would become the Skol Pub. Court documents obtained by CHLY suggest that following a sealed bid process, a new owner for the property will be decided on September 23rd. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom and more. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Sailor Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.